How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. In today's video, I have 3 topics to cover, starting out with the PSPlaceable. It's real and it's kind of awesome. Second on the list, we're going to talk about how Sony has no fear about people jumping ship. And third, Killzone is back in a really cool way. This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot. I love FlexiSpot because the standing desks they sent over are excellent. I have 2 standing desks from them and they've completely transformed my workspaces. The one down here makes editing so much easier for me because I can stand up and stretch my legs when I need to. I love how sturdy the desk is. It has 540 pounds of static capacity. I love that it has 3-stage legs that let me use it at any height, and the 4-legged design makes it super sturdy. It's also compatible with all desk accessories, and the keypad has a USB charger, which is awesome. And it has a 15-year warranty, so you can feel good about your purchase. They're running a ton of promotions for Black Friday right now that include their pet grooming vacuum, which they sent over, and it's great. And the promotions also include their 2-in-1 walking pad, which I cannot wait to use. FlexiSpot provides all kinds of standing desks and ergonomic chairs to fit your demands. If you're looking for a premium experience, it's easy to recommend the E7 Pro, but if you're looking for an even more sturdy experience, I recommend the E7 Plus with its 4-legged design. They also have comfortable ergonomic chairs with flexible adjustments for your back. Use my promo code PSReady50 for $50 off their premium desks. Huge shout out once again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. All right, let's jump into it and talk about the PSPlaceable. You guys know I love handhelds. I'm a big handheld guy. I've got my Vita around. I've got a PSP 3000 sitting in that tool chest over there. I've got an analog pocket. I've got a Steam Deck. I just really like that form factor because I can play the games I want to play anywhere in my house. And unfortunately, Sony has not given me a way to do that since the PlayStation Vita, but I'm ready and waiting for this eventual PS5 handheld that we're probably going to see around the launch of the PlayStation 6. But in the meantime, these people who are modders have kind of asked the question, what if we go in reverse? What if we take one of the best handheld consoles ever, the PlayStation Portable, and turn it into a TV top box, like a mini PS2 style device, and call it the PlayStation Placeable? And this isn't one of those Raspberry Pi machines where you take the board, you put a, like, I don't know, emulation station operating system on it and put it in a PS2 style housing and call it a day. What these people have done is literally deconstruct the PlayStation Portable and rebuild it into a much smaller than a PS2, but PS2 style looking chassis. And it's awesome, right? Like, it outputs to your TV, which is great. You can connect a controller to it, which is awesome. But the coolest thing about it is they've retained the UMD drive, which is awesome. If you collect UMDs, you still have them laying around. You could use this as a de facto PSP hardware that you can play on the TV. The coolest thing is they're selling this. This isn't just like a one-off thing. You can actually buy it in multiple different forms. You can buy the parts that are required for it and deconstruct a PSP of your own. That'll cost you around $100. Of course, not including the cost of the PSP. But if you're like me, you've got a couple of those laying around. They come into my mom's thrift store all the time and I just grab them as soon as I see them. And also you can buy one that's fully constructed for like $270, which honestly, it's a lot of money for what this is. But if you're the kind of retro enthusiast collector that we are quickly becoming as people born, you know, before 2000, the PSP is definitely a retro console now, and the 360 and PS3 are well on their way, even if they're not already. This is a really cool thing. I honestly want to pick up the one that you build yourself because it just seems like a really fun project. A lot of articles I read about this mention that there already is this directly from Sony, the PlayStation TV. I have one of those, and this seems cooler than the PlayStation TV for a few reasons. If you don't know what the PS TV was, basically towards the tail end of the PS3 generation, they released this $100 bundle that's basically like the hardware from a PlayStation Vita bundled in with a DualShock 3 controller. It was like a cheap way to get into the PlayStation ecosystem. Of course, it could play Vita games that you downloaded, or I'm pretty sure it had a Vita cart slot on the back. But since the Vita was digitally compatible with all PSP games except for some weird outliers, which were some of the best games, like I don't know, Birth by Sleep or Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, you could download PSP games to this thing. You could download PS1 games, and there were collections of PS2 games upscaled in HD for the PlayStation Vita you could play. So it was actually like a pretty far-reaching backwards compatible console. But the reason it's not as cool as the PSPlaceable is that it has the Vita's operating system, which, you know, was cool at the time but has not aged well. I don't like the bubbles. I don't like the way the themes looked. If you use this PSPlaceable, you basically get a mini PS3 operating system because the UI for the PS3 and PS Vita was basically identical, which makes it really cool. I'm just weirdly nostalgic for the PSP era. I know a bunch of people got into the PlayStation ecosystem with the PS4 or at the tail end of the PS3, so you might have missed a lot of these games. Some of the best ones are like God of War, Chains of Olympus, and Ghosts of Sparta. You've got the Gran Turismo 4 kind of deconstructed port that they put on the PSP, which was good in its own right. MotorStorm, I'm pretty sure it was called Arctic Rift, but it might have been called Arctic Edge. It was like a built from the ground up MotorStorm game set in Alaska. I loved playing that. There was also stuff like Daxter. You had Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. A lot of these games are available on the PlayStation 5, so if you don't want to go out and invest in a PlayStation Portable or, you know, the PlayStation Placeable, I would recommend going back and checking out a lot of these games on your PlayStation 5 because it'll make you kind of understand where I'm coming from when I beg for franchises like the ones I already mentioned to come back in their original form. I like where PlayStation went in the PS4 generation. They did what they had to do, but I'm glad companies like Naughty Dog are going back and finding the fun in gaming because the post-apocalyptic, everything is done, the world is ended vibe that a lot of games had over the past generation is awesome, but I feel like it's a little bit played out and I just want fun back in gaming. I've been playing a ton of Gran Turismo 7 and it's just nice to have a game that I boot up, it plays Christmas music on the home screen. The whole goal of the game is to play it and get better at it and collect credits and buy cars. The simplicity of it is what I've been chasing. I've been playing a lot of this new fan mod for one of my favorite games of all time, Need for Speed Underground 2. If you have like a decent PC or a Steam Deck, you should definitely check out the Need for Speed Underground 2.net mod. It's basically a visual overhaul that takes 2 seconds to install. It gives you a widescreen fix for the game and it redoes the graphics and the lighting to make it look like a lot of these PS2 era throwback games that are coming out. I've been sinking hours into it and I just want games like that back. The rumors are they're working on a Need for Speed Most Wanted remake, not the Criterion version, but the really good 2005 version that was like edgy and cool. I'm like nostalgic for that era and I want it back. So it's cool to see hardware being deconstructed and reconstructed in cool ways to kind of modernize it in its own way. Anyway, that brings me to the next topic here, which is basically like a sigh of relief. Gaming is weird right now. It's bizarre to see so many publishers like Microsoft essentially just going full third party, saying every device is an Xbox. I've seen people doing like overtime work trying to say, oh, I don't need an Xbox when I can stream games from the cloud to my MetaQuest 3. And like, that's cool. It's just, it's not fun, right? Like it's fun having brands to root for. At the end of the day, I know I don't own Sony or anything. I don't even have stock in Sony, but like rooting for a brand that has a legacy, it gives it an identity and gives you something fun to engage with and pay attention to, which is why I make PSReady videos and why hopefully and thankfully you watch them. The big next step that everyone is kind of seeing for Xbox and they're just kind of projecting it onto Sony, which I think is dumb, and I'll talk about that in a second, is that a PC is going to be the future for everyone because PC growth is exploding ever since 2020. And what they're either choosing not to say or failing to see is that PC, while yes, the growth is going really fast, it's growing from a much smaller position in the industry than consoles are at and have been at for a very long time. So while, yeah, there are more people getting into PC gaming and it's growing at a fast rate, we don't know what the saturation point is. And also it's going to take a very long time for the numbers to really catch up with where consoles like the PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch are at. And honestly, I don't want a future where consoles and PC are the same thing. I mentioned this a lot on the channel, but like I play on PC and PlayStation 5. Those are my two main platforms. And it's cool to see PC kind of becoming more console-like with the Steam Deck and SteamOS 3. But as time has gone on, as someone who's played on PC for around 10 years now, a lot of the things that got me into it in the first place, like more freedom, having my games just transfer between every PC I have and Steam as a whole, they're really starting to lose their luster. Like when I was in college, I had infinite time, right? Like I found fun in tinkering with old games, making them work right on my PC, or finding the best graphic settings, or playing online games without having to pay for a subscription service. But now when I'm older and I have less time, there is so much value in being able to just sit down at my desk or sit down on my couch upstairs and hit the PS button and be back in whatever game I was playing the night before, and just not having to screw around with anything to actually just get into the game. Like, I've been on a huge racing game kick for the past year or so. I've been playing a ton of Gran Turismo. I've been playing a ton of Assetto Corsa. I've been playing a ton of Need for Speed Unbound, and Unbound is the one that made me just throw my hands up and buy the game on PlayStation 5. I like playing it on PC, but like, that game does not require a racing wheel. It actually works worse with a racing wheel. The Gran Turismo 7 experience is also really good on a controller, and you know, it takes a whole thing to set up the racing wheel that I have and everything like that. I need to get one of those stands so I can just wheel it in and out. But in the meantime, I've been having a ton of fun just playing Unbound on PlayStation 5, even though I already own it on PC. I bought it on disc earlier this year. I installed the disc, and I noticed that there's a $15 pack you can buy. That's the Ultimate Edition that unlocks all the cars that were released during the different speed passes. So you get a head start on multiplayer. So I didn't really lose anything by switching over. It is 30 frames per second, which kind of sucks, but it just plays really good on a big TV and on a controller. And it's just nice. After editing a ton of videos, shooting a ton of videos, being able to just boot up my PlayStation 5 no matter where I'm at in my house and have all my saves transfer and everything, that convenience factor really matters. Anyway, with all this talk of doom and gloom and consoles going away, it's really good to see that Sony is feeling good. They said that they're happy with the amount of people this year who have switched over from PS4 to PS5. They say that they're not worried about losing a lot of players to PC, which makes sense because while at the beginning, hopefully that didn't screw up my audio, while at the beginning, games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Death Stranding did really well on PC, and God of War, as time has gone on, the novelty is worn off, and these games are taking like a year or so to release on PC. They're not seeing the huge sales like they were before. They're seeing more sales on PlayStation 5, so I don't really think they have anything to worry about there. And also, the hardware numbers came out for the end of the year. PS5 is up 19% from last year, which wasn't expected, which is good. And despite releasing Call of Duty on Game Pass and everything like that, and Indiana Jones, hardware for Xbox is down like 29%. So when you see all these people saying that the future of consoles is what Xbox is doing, don't believe it, right? Like, if Nintendo is doing it, like if Nintendo starts putting all their first party stuff on PC and, you know, the Xbox and the PlayStation 5, that's when I would start worrying about console models and exclusives going away. But like, they're not doing it because they're successful right now. Sony's successful, Nintendo's successful, their hardware game is working. Xbox is not successful with hardware, so they're just doing different to stay profitable because they have to make all that money back they spent on Activision. Like, I see a lot of the Xbox creators saying that this is the future for everyone. Not only do I hope it's not, I don't think it is. I just don't see it when you have a successful hardware platform like PlayStation that's actually growing versus stagnating or declining like you are with Xbox. And I don't think you can criticize Nintendo for stagnating or decreasing in sales right now because the Switch is old. It's like 7 to 8 years old, and it's competing with the PlayStation 5 right now. Like, it's doing just fine. They're going to release the Switch 2, and I'm assuming that's going to do really well as well. So I think consoles are fine, just not for Xbox. Anyway, that brings me to the third news story here, which is that Killzone is back. Thankfully, I love Killzone. Killzone 2 is back specifically in a crossover with Helldivers 2. Now, they're doing this one a little bit weird. The leak around this suggested it was going to be a war bond that comes with different Helldivers skins, different Helldivers weapons, and that seemed really cool. But then they announced today that the first half of the Killzone crossover is happening in the Superstore. And if you add up the cost of the stuff that's available, it's like $20. And I saw some people complaining about that. I don't really care because I play Helldivers 2. Like, if you're someone who doesn't play Helldivers 2, you haven't built up enough super credits just by playing the game, I could see how you might see that as a little bit expensive, especially compared to a war bond, which is like $10. But if you, this is like kind of revealing who actually plays Helldivers and who's only going to play it for like an hour to get the Killzone skins and then like bounce off the game after not really enjoying it. Because if you've played like, I don't know, 5 to 10 hours of Helldivers 2, you probably have enough super credits saved up just from playing the game to afford all of these skins and have some coins left over. Like, the economy in this game encourages you not to spend money just by playing the game and on higher difficulties. So by sinking more hours into it, you get more super credits just littered around the map. Like, I booted it up on my PC today and I was like, oh, I already have enough credits just from playing the game. The only time I ever spend money in Helldivers is to buy war bonds. So I buy the exact amount of currency I need. So I know that the leftover currency I have is just from playing the game. So I was just fine. Hopefully this does well. else sells well and gets Sony to like realize that Killzone is way too cool of a brand to kind of leave languishing in the dust. I get that Guerrilla is kind of done with it and whatever, they want to make Horizon, they want to do their Horizon multiplayer and all that stuff. That's fine. I don't like need to play everything they release, but Sony has other developers there just sitting there that could totally bring back Killzone, could totally bring back SOCOM, and I think they really should do it, right? Like Arrowhead, I know they're busy working on Helldivers 2, and thankfully the numbers are back up after this awesome new update they dropped during the Game Awards, but like, let them make a Killzone game. They know how to make a great third-person shooter. I'm sure they could figure out how to make a good first-person shooter as well if they got the Killzone license. So hopefully, you know, this new skin pack for Helldivers 2 that includes Killzone 2 skins kind of generates enough sales where Sony says, hey, maybe this brand isn't as dormant as we thought, and then Arrowhead can be like, well, we already been modeling Killzone stuff, we could do a standalone Killzone game, and Sony gives them the money to do it. But yeah, I've seen the controversy around the pricing on this, and like, if you've seen how Destiny does it, where they do these crossovers with like The Witcher or Assassin's Creed, those skins always cost more because it costs money to license these brands. Even if it's a PlayStation IP like Killzone, there still needs to be money exchanged between the studios for Sony to put on their balance sheets. So I'm just like assuming that, you know, this cost them a little bit of money. I'm fine with them charging like $20 for these skins, because if you play Helldivers 2, chances are you have at least enough coins saved up to buy these skins, and if you don't, you'll probably only end up having to spend like $5 or $6 to get the little bit of leftover that you need. It's like a non-controversy in my opinion, but I don't know, I could be wrong there, and I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comments below. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.